Yeah, and he's not even from here.
No, I know. I even put it in the minutes. I put a resident of Washington, Illinois. I got it ready. I'm like, that's weird. Why do you care about our taxes?
You think we'll get more? Oh, she's handing out. Oh, there they are, sitting in front row.
We saved him seats.
Hmm.
We saved him seats.
That was smart. Good evening, everyone. Sorry for the delay. It is 6:00 p.m. on Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025. I'd like to call the meeting of the Peoria City Council to order. I'd also like to welcome everyone who's here in our historic chambers, as well as everyone who's listening through WCBU and our audience watching on cable channel 22. Okay. Madam Clerk, the council mics are open. Please call the roll.
Mayor Ali,
Present.
Councilmember Allen,
Present.
Councilmember Sear, Councilmember Gordon Young, Councilmember Graham,
Here.
Councilmember Jackson,
Here.
Councilmember Euler,
Here.
Councilmember Riggenbach,
Here.
and Councilmember Vespa.
Here.
You have a quorum present, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. A notice was received by Councilmember Kelly and Councilmember Valpula of the Peoria City Council in accordance with rules established in ordinance number 16,142. Councilmember Kelly and Councilmember Valpula would be deemed authorized to attend the meeting electronically unless a motion objecting to Councilmember Kelly's and Councilmember Valpula's electronic attendance is made, seconded, and approved by 2/3 of the members of the City Council physically present at the meeting. If no such motion is made and seconded, then the request by Councilmember Kelly and Councilmember Valpula to attend electronically shall be deemed approved by the City Council, and the presiding officer shall declare Councilmember Kelly and Councilmember Valpula present. Hearing no objection, Madam Clerk, can you please call their attendance?
Councilmember Kelly, Councilmember Kelly, Councilmember Valpula. I think it disconnected.
We lost the feed. Weather?
Did it disconnect? We've lost
Okay.
all internet.
Okay, well, let's give it a minute or so and try again.
Okay.
Bear with us, please.
We were having challenges at the county today during the meeting meetings.
Okay, I'll let them know. Yeah.
How are things looking, Madam Clerk?
I'm going to try Councilmember Valpula.
Okay.
Councilmember Valpula?
Present.
Great, thank you. One more moment and we'll try Councilmember Kelly.
Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly is unable to connect due to a power outage. He could perhaps connect via phone if we wanted to try to do it that way, or he can connect later when his power is back on.
Okay, let's do it that way. Let's
Okay.
proceed. So you get confirmation from Councilmember Valpula.
Correct, yes.
All righty, thank you. Everyone, please join me and stand for a moment of silent prayer or silent reflection, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, Madam Clerk,
We're at proclamations.
we have a number of proclamations today, and I've asked council members to share the reading of the proclamations. The first proclamation recognizes Arbor Day, and we have our Director of Public Works, Rick Powers, our Deputy Director of Public Works, Cy Maroon, and who else do we have?
Sean Johnson, Program Supervisor
Okay,
for Public
Mr.
Works.
Sean Johnson, thank you. Are you solo?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so Mr. Johnson is representing, and Councilmember Greb is going to read the proclamation. Thank you.
Thank you. Whereas Arbor Day was established in 1872 when the Nebraska Board of Agriculture wanted to designate a special day to be set aside for the planting of trees, this first holiday was acknowledged in Nebraska with the planting of more than 1 million trees. Arbor Day is now observed throughout the world, and whereas trees can be a solution to combating climate change by reducing the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cutting heating and cooling costs, moderating the temperature, cleaning the air, producing oxygen, and providing habitat for wildlife, and whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other products, and whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community, and trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, I, Rita Ali, Mayor of the City of Peoria, Illinois, and on behalf of the City Council, do hereby recognize April 25 as Arbor Day in Peoria, Illinois, dated this 22nd day of April, 2025 AD.
Thank you. So I see Mr. Johnson has been joined by Deputy Director Cy Maroon as well. Gentlemen.
I'd like to accept this proclamation on behalf of the City of Peoria. I'd also like to say that we recently achieved another 32 years of Tree City USA. So we've accomplished that, and we're going to be working on 33 years next year.
Fantastic. And anything from you, Director?
So in conjunction with Arbor Day, we will be planting trees on Friday, and everyone is welcome. We're going to be doing down at the Gateway Building. And we've got South-West Kiwanis donates a tree every year, and it's going to allow us to plant the tree down there. We've also got a couple more requests for planting trees, so the more the better. We love planting trees. So we've got a couple requests for others that might be off-site from the Gateway Building. So, and then in addition to that, on Saturday, we have our free mulch giveaway at Drees Lane, and that will be from 8 to 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And so that's another factor that we factor in with Arbor Day is the mulch giveaway. So last week was our first week. We're going to have one more this weekend, and we had an enormous amount of turnout. It was phenomenal, the turnout that we had with the giveaway. So we're looking forward to another great weekend.
Great, thank you. Free mulch, everybody. Hope you heard that. Our next proclamation recognizes Community Development Week, and we have our Director of Community Development, Joe Doolin, as well as our Community Development Grants and Budget Manager, Catherine Murphy. Councilmember Riggenbach is going to share the proclamation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Whereas the City of Peoria Community Development Department focuses on 6 major areas: land management, planning and zoning, building safety, code enforcement, neighborhood support, and grant management. And whereas National Community Development Week was created in 1986 to bring national attention to the significance and impact of the Community Development Block Grant and Home Investment Partnership programs. Whereas the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG as we call it, program has operated since 1974 to provide local governments with the resources to develop viable urban communities by providing decent, affordable housing, creating suitable living environments, and expanding economic opportunities, principally for people of low and moderate income. Whereas the City of Peoria has effectively administered and customized its CDBG program to implement various programs and projects in the areas of affordable housing, public services, public facilities, parks, and sidewalks to improve the conditions in our city. And whereas Congress and the nation acknowledge the critical value of the Community Development Block Grant Program and the significant projects and assistance opportunities that rely on these funds for support. Now, therefore, Rita Ali, Mayor of the City of Peoria, does hereby recognize April 21st through 25th as Community Development Week in Peoria, Illinois, dated this 22nd day of April, 2025.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. So Community Development Week isn't just a week to celebrate kind of the Community Development Department. It's specifically to kind of bring focus and attention to that the City of Peoria is an entitlement community through HUD, which allows us direct allocations of funds that we can specifically put to local use. So when you see press releases out of our office about a roofing program that helps low-income residents put a brand new roof on their house, or breaking ground on a great project on the south end like Churchview Gardens that brings affordable housing to our community, or all the funds that go to our homeless service providers that the city passes through, that's where this money is coming from. And I think in this time what we're seeing on the federal level, and when they talk about budget cuts, it's really important to recognize this week and recognize the importance and value that this money is being spent incredibly impactful in our community, and our staff is doing a wonderful job stretching it as far as possible. It's not just going to fund large projects. It's going to provide direct services to our residents. And I will take the time to really show appreciation for our grant staff and all of our community development staff. There are 3 members are in the back: Catherine Murphy, Jeff Simish, who's our community service inspector, and Nicole Morrow, who's our housing coordinator. The entire grants team does a fantastic job administering this money, making sure that HUD never finds any issues with how we're administering it, and really kind of coming up with creative solutions about how we can continue to make it more impactful going forward. So thank you very much.
We celebrate each of you. Thank you. Our next proclamation recognizes Municipal Clerks Week, and we have some fantastic clerks. I want to first recognize our city clerk, Clerk Stephanie Tarr, and ask her to introduce the other clerks, please.
Sure. I'm honored. I'd like to introduce Trina Bonds. She's my Chief Deputy Clerk. Then Courtney Coe. She's the one who does the minutes. She sits right here, does the agendas. Amanda Hildy, she does all the FOIAs that come through, and we got a lot of FOIAs we've got to track. And then Ian Monk, he's our records coordinator. This office wouldn't run without these guys. I am very blessed to have them.
Fantastic. We're blessed to have you as well.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk. Whereas the office of the Municipal Clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists through the world as the oldest profession among public servants. And whereas the office of the Municipal Clerk provides the professional link between community members, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels. And whereas municipal clerks have pledged to be mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, providing equal service to all community members through transparent and accountable government practices. And whereas municipal clerks serve as an informational hub and official record keeper for the municipality, especially as related to city council meetings. And whereas municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the municipal clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their states, provinces, counties, cities, and international professional organizations. Now therefore I, Rita Ali, Mayor of the City of Peoria, Illinois, do hereby recognize May 4th through May 10th, coming up, as Municipal Clerks Week in Peoria, Illinois.
Thank you, Mayor Ali and the City Council for this kind recognition. I'm honored to accept this proclamation on behalf of City Clerk Stephanie Tarr and the entire City Clerk's office. Municipal clerks may often work behind the scenes, but our commitment to transparency, accessibility, and service is always at the forefront of what we do. This recognition during Municipal Clerks Week means a great deal to us. Thank you again for the acknowledgement, and it's a privilege to serve the residents of Peoria.
You're welcome. Thank you. Our next proclamation recognizes Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. And we have Thomas Moore, who is the president of Epsilon Rho Sigma chapter of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, and Ed Washington, member of Epsilon Rho Sigma chapter of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. Thank you, gentlemen. I have asked Councilmember Andre Allen, Dr. Allen, to share the proclamation. Is that on? There we go.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome.
Whereas Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated was founded at Howard University in Washington, D.C. on January 9th, 1914 by 3 young African-American students, the Honorable A. Langston Taylor, Leonard F. Morse, Charles Brown, to organize a Greek letter fraternity that exemplified the ideas of brotherhood, scholarship, and service. And whereas the Epsilon Rho Sigma chapter of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated was established in Peoria, Illinois on May 12, 1975 by brothers Ed and Tom Washington, who moved to Peoria after graduating college. The chapter has since produced a remarkable array of community leaders, business owners, educators, politicians, and engineers who have advanced their fields and served as beacons of inspiration for future generations. And whereas the chapter has spearheaded numerous community engagement initiatives, including partnering with local not-for-profits, organizing fundraisers and events for the March of Dimes, and partnering in food and clothing drives to directly benefit the underserved members of Peoria, Illinois, and beyond. And whereas, as the chapter celebrates its 50th anniversary on May 12, 2025, we honor the enduring impact of its members and the continued relevance of Phi Beta Sigma's values, while looking forward to the future of the fraternity as it promotes unity, leadership, and service within the community. Now, therefore, I, Rita Ali, Mayor of the City of Peoria, Illinois, do hereby recognize and celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Epsilon Rho Sigma chapter of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated in Peoria, Illinois, dated the 22nd day of April, 2025 AD.
I would like to say, giving all praises to God and who's ahead of my life. And thank you for being here, and thank you for letting us accept this. The Epsilon Rho Sigma chapter of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, established in Peoria, Illinois on May 12th, 1975. We are celebrating our 50th year of service to the Peoria community. We have been a significant force for the community through leadership, education, and service. Since the inception of in 1975, the chapter has spread the initiatives like fundraising for the March of Dimes, partnering with local non-for-profits. We donated the bust of recognition located at our frat brothers, Brother George Washington Carver Center, Community Center here in Peoria, participating in the food drives and clothing drives. The chapter has produced numerous community leaders, business owners, educators, politicians, and engineers, contributing to the advancement of their respective fields and inspiring future generations. We have participated in the It Takes a Village prom dress giveaway and worked with the Red Cross for our national program to fight sickle cell awareness, which we will be having on June 18th, sickle cell awareness blood drive over in the Paradise Hotel, which also we will be hosting our second annual Blue and White Gala on October 18th. Last year at the Blue and White Gala, we raised $5,000 to support Peoria Grown's initiative to fight against the food desert on the Peoria South End community. We look forward to getting into more good trouble. We, the men of Phi Beta Sigma, we believe in culture for service and service for humanity. And we would like to thank Mayor Rita Ali and the City of Peoria Council and the at-large council members. Blue Phi! You know!
We thank you. Our next proclamation recognizes Southtown, and we have Elizabeth Kleiss with the Peoria Historical Society. She's the executive director. And we have May Catherine Godhigh, who's the Place and Displacement co-chair. Welcome, ladies. And Councilmember Vespa is going to share that proclamation.
Whereas we honor the history of Southtown, a neighborhood where generations of people who arrived in Peoria during the Great Migration of the 20th century found work, housing, and community. And whereas in the late 1960s and 1970s, an urban renewal effort led to the demolition of hundreds of houses and the displacement of thousands of people in this area. Long stretches of streets were erased from the map, but the memories still reside in the minds and hearts of many former residents. And whereas the Peoria Historical Society is shining a light on Southtown through a public, community-driven project called Place and Displacement, which will feature an exhibit of hundreds of rarely seen photographs and maps of the neighborhood's houses, schools, stores, and other structures that no longer exist. And whereas Place and Displacement, which opens with a reception on April 25th, will also feature panel discussions on May 10th and May 14th that address the roots and results of this urban renewal effort and allow people who remember Southtown to share their memories of the neighborhood. And whereas, through these efforts, the Peoria Historical Society, along with community partners George Washington Carver Community Center, Central Illinois Landmark Foundation, Peoria County Genealogical Society, Peoria Opportunities Foundation, Peoria Public Library, Traveler Weekly, and the Tri-County Regional Planning Commission seeks to capture the memories and stories of this Peoria neighborhood before they are gone forever, preserving the history of a place so many once called home. Now, therefore, I, Rita Ali, Mayor of the City of Peoria, Illinois, to hereby recognize and commend the community effort to remember Southtown in Peoria, Illinois, dated this 22nd day of April, 2025.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and City Council members, for this proclamation. My name is Elizabeth Kleiss. I'm Executive Director of the Peoria Historical Society, and we are so honored to be presenting Place and Displacement, which will open this Friday, April 25th, with an exhibit at Carver Center from 5:30 to 8. Friday's event will feature photographs of buildings that once stood in Southtown, and it will be followed by 2 panel discussions on urban renewal in that area on May 10th and May 14th, also at Carver. All of this information can be found on the Peoria Historical Society website. We could never, ever have carried out this effort without the help of the organizations mentioned and the people you see here and others not here, including our 2 co-chairs, Angela Allen Henry and May Catherine Godhigh, and I'm hoping May Catherine could have a moment to speak as well.
Absolutely.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Council. The Dream Team. This is a dream team and unsung heroes. Everybody's standing beside me. And I want to say thank you. We received this recognition on behalf of the Peoria Historical Society. And we invite you, personally invite each and every one of you to come down to Carver and to celebrate those stories that are still among us. As you know, most of those people there are aging now and memories are fading, but I'm so thankful that the Peoria Historical Society, along with the Peoria Public Library, who are the gatekeepers of history in our community, that we could work together to capture and to preserve this history for generations. We look forward to seeing each and every one of you. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you for keeping these stories alive, and I look forward to being there on Friday. Thank you. Our final proclamation recognizes Poppy Days, and we have our own Mr. Gary Hall, American Legion Post 2, and Mr. Phil Burnett, American Legion Post 2 as well. Gentlemen, if you would come to the podium, Councilmember Euler will share the proclamation.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas Poppy Days are a time to honor those who have fallen while also representing a sign of hope and renewal for the living, the poppy flower is worn as a symbol to honor the dead while also representing a sign of hope and renewal for the living. All the poppy flowers that are distributed among communities are assembled with pride by America's righteous disabled veterans. And whereas from the battlefields of World War I, weary soldiers brought home the memory of a barren landscape transformed by wild poppies, red as the blood that had soaked the soil. By that miracle of nature, the spirit of their lost comrades lived on. The poppy became a symbol of the sacrifice of lives in war and represented the hope that none had died in vain. And whereas the American Legion Auxiliary Poppy has continued to bloom for the casualties of all wars, its petals of paper bound together for veterans by veterans, reminding America each year that the men and women who have served and died for their country deserve to be remembered. And whereas identifying the poppy as a memorial flower can be attributed to Moyna Michael when, in 1918, she was so moved by the poem In Flanders Fields that she wrote this response, that blood of heroes never dies, but lends a luster for the red of the flower that blooms above the dead in Flanders Fields. Whereas she purchased a bouquet of poppies and asked her colleagues to wear them as a tribute to the fallen, later, she advocated for the adoption of the poppy as the national symbol of sacrifice. And whereas the American Legion and the American Legion Auxiliary unite in their efforts to keep the memory alive of those who perished while serving, in addition to honoring those who served. All donations go to the Illinois Veterans Homes in Manteneau, Danville, Quincy, LaSalle, and gifts to the Yanks. Now therefore, Rita Ali, Mayor of the City of Peoria, Illinois, does hereby acknowledge May 8th, 9th, and 10th as Poppy Days in Peoria, Illinois, dated this 22nd day of April, 2025.
Veterans.
Well, you took my speech. Anyway, on behalf of American Legion Post Number 2, we thank you for this proclamation, and want to let everybody know that next month when we're at the Hy-Vees and the Walmarts, that we'll be out there with our poppies, looking for people to help out these nursing homes, veterans homes, I mean. And I don't know what else to say, but oh yeah, one more thing has nothing to do with this. Chuck Graham, this is your last day. I said that wrong. I hear this is your last council meeting. Personally, he's done a lot of things for me and for the Legion, and he's just the kind of guy that does stuff and you never know about it. He just gets it done. And I hope that you'll keep on getting things done, even though you're not in the city council. Appreciate your work and everything you did for me and for the POW flag and everything else. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your leadership. Don't they look great in their uniforms? Fantastic. Yeah. Madam Clerk.
We are at the approval of the minutes.
Councilmember Riggenbach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to approve the minutes of the joint city council and town board meeting held April 8th, 2025 as printed.
Seconded by Councilmember Jackson. Any questions, comments? Okay. Can you take a peek over here? Okay. Can you turn on my speaker? Councilmember Valpula.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
We're at the town portion of the agenda. We have one public hearing. 25-76 is a public hearing regarding the 2025-2026 budget for the town of the city of Peoria. And we need a motion to open the public hearing, please.
Can I get a motion to open? Moved by Trustee Allen, seconded by Trustee Gordon Young. And we need to vote on that. Change here with my system. Same thing. Okay. Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Valpula?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to the hearing regarding the 2025 budget for the town of the city of Peoria? Again, is there anyone who would like to speak at this public hearing regarding the 2025-2026 budget for the town of the city of Peoria? No.
Regards to the Deerbrook project, the road construction project?
No.
That you will be deciding maybe tonight if you're going to approve the bid?
This is not the city council hearing. This is a town of the city of Peoria hearing. And for the third time, is there anyone who would like to speak to the public hearing regarding the 2025 to 2026 budget for the town of the city of Peoria? Then I would ask for a motion to close the public hearing, moved by trustee Allen, seconded by trustee Gordon Young. Please cast your ballots. Trustee Valpula?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
25-77 is a resolution consenting to the employment of Mesher, Reinhardt, and Rillingshafer, P.C. as town attorneys with request to approve.
Trustee Graham?
I move to approve the resolution as outlined and as explained in the township communication.
Seconded by trustee Jackson. Any questions or comments? Please cast your ballots. Trustee Valpula? Trustee Valpula?
Yeah.
Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
25-78 is a resolution for the town of the city of Peoria authorizing township officials to continue a loss control policy with Torma and to enter into a contract of insurance with request to approve.
Trustee Graham?
Move to approve the resolution as is outlined.
Seconded by trustee Jackson. Any questions or comments? Please cast your ballots. Trustee Valpula?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
25-79 is a resolution authorizing the town of the city of Peoria to enter into a payroll services agreement with ADP with request to approve.
Trustee Graham?
I move to approve the payroll services agreement with ADP LLC as outlined.
Seconded by trustee Jackson. Any questions or comments? Please cast your ballots. Trustee Valpula?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
25-80 is a resolution authorizing the town of the city of Peoria to enter into an agreement with the Heartland Clinic with request to approve and to receive and file the letter included with the resolution.
Trustee Graham?
I move to approve the agreement as outlined with the Heartland Clinic.
Seconded by trustee Jackson. Any questions or comments? Please cast your ballots. Trustee Valpula?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
25-81 is a resolution authorizing the town of the city of Peoria to make a donation to the Center for Prevention of Abuse with request to approve and to receive and file the letter included with the resolution.
Trustee Graham?
I move to approve the donation to the Center for Prevention of Abuse as outlined.
Seconded by Trustee Jackson. Any questions or comments? Please cast your ballots. Trustee Valpula?
Madam Mayor, I wanted to abstain because I serve on the board of directors for Center for Prevention of Abuse.
Okay. Motion passes with one abstention. Valpula? Madam Clerk?
25-82 is a resolution authorizing the town of the city of Peoria to make a donation to Friendship House of Christian Service with request to approve and to receive and file the letter included with the resolution.
Trustee Graham?
I move to approve the donation to the Friendship House with the request to approve and to receive and file the letter included with this resolution.
Seconded by Trustee Jackson. Any questions or comments? Please cast your ballots. Trustee Valpula?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
25-83 is a resolution authorizing the town of the city of Peoria to make a donation to Peoria Grown with request to approve and to receive and file the letter included with the resolution.
Trustee Graham?
I move to approve the donation to Peoria Grown as outlined and to also file the letter included with the resolution.
Seconded by Trustee Jackson. Any questions or comments? Please cast your ballots. Trustee Valpula?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
25-84 is an annual town budget and appropriation ordinance for 2025-2026 with request to adopt.
Trustee Graham?
I move to approve the ordinance as outlined for 2025 and 2026.
Seconded by Trustee Jackson. Any questions or comments? Please cast your ballots. Trustee Valpula?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
25-85 is a resolution consenting to the employment of Clifton Larson Allen, LLP, as outside independent auditors with request to approve.
Trustee Graham?
I move to approve as outlined by our clerk.
Seconded by Trustee Jackson. Any questions or comments? Please cast your ballots. Trustee Valpula?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
25-86 is a resolution designating individuals to prepare the budget and appropriation ordinance for fiscal year 2026-2027 with request to approve.
Trustee Graham?
Move to approve as outlined.
Seconded by Trustee Jackson. Any questions or comments? Please cast your ballots. Trustee Valpula?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
25-87 is a resolution designating the time, place, and date of the 2026 annual town meeting with request to approve.
Trustee Graham?
I move to approve the resolution designating the time, place, and date of the 2026 annual town meeting. Move to approve.
Seconded by Trustee Jackson. Any questions or comments? Please cast your ballots. Trustee Valpula?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Madam Clerk?
We are on to the city portion of the agenda. Excuse me. We are at the consent agenda. 25-88 is a communication from the city manager and director of public works with a request to approve a contract for the 2025 landscape stewardship and maintenance projects with Chambers and Sons Landscaping, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $350,000. 25-89 is a request to approve the low bid of Phoenix Corporation of the Quad Cities and award a contract for the Wilhelm Road Bridge Channel Stabilization in the amount of $416,368.50, with an additional authorization of $41,631.50 for contingencies in an amount not to exceed of $458,000. 25-90 is a communication with request to approve the low bid of R.A. Cullinan and Son, a division of UCM Inc., and award a contract for the Deerbrook Drive reconstruction in an amount not to exceed $7,424,430. 25-91 is a request to concur with a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff for the following. A, adopt an ordinance amending an existing special use ordinance number 14154 as amended for a cemetery and mausoleum to remove 5.5 acres of property from the southern boundary of the property located at 7519 North Allen Road. And B, adopt an ordinance rezoning 5.5 acres from Class R3 Single Family Residential District to a Class C2 Large Scale Commercial District for the property located at 7519 North Allen Road. And 25-92 is a communication from the City Manager and Director of Human Resources with a request to adopt an ordinance approving the City of Peoria bilingual pay policy, and that concludes our consent agenda.
Thank you. Are there any items to remove from consent? Okay, can I get a motion to approve? Moved by Councilmember Allen, seconded by Councilmember Euler. Any comments or questions? Please cast your ballot. Councilmember Valpula?
Yeah.
Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
We are at first readings. 25-93 is a communication from the City Manager, Corporation Counsel, and Finance Director Comptroller with a request to receive and file a first reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 18, Article 14, Section 18-621 of the Code of the City of Peoria relating to existing tobacco retail licenses.
Corporation Counsel Hayes?
Good evening, Your Honor.
Good
Thank
evening.
you. A Class 2 tobacco retailer went out of business, and that license has been returned to the city. So we have a cap presently on Class 2, which is standalone tobacco outlets without other retail amenities. So we have established that cap in order to give council maximum discretion in authorizing new standalone tobacco outlets. In order to maintain that, we now need to reduce the cap by 1 from 14 to 13. And I promise I've made extra effort to count correctly this time. We hope to not be back to make an adjustment at staff's request. But this is to maintain our cap at the present level of the 13 active Class 2 licenses. And we'd ask for approval of the or this is a first reading.
This
We'll
is
be
first
back
reading, right?
For passage on May 13th. Thank you.
Sure. Are there any questions for Counsel Hayes regarding this first reading? Can I get a motion to receive and file?
Madam Mayor,
Oh, I'm sorry. Councilmember Valpula has a comment or question. Councilmember?
thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I understand that we are trying to reduce the cap from 14 to 13 because one business just closed. But I think one surrendered license or business license for tobacco establishment, it should not equate for permanent reduction. Maybe that license could be reissued to a responsible new business. I don't know why we need to put the cap on it. I think if I understand correctly, I'm understanding that we are proposing to put a cap because one of the business turned in their license. Is that right?
To maintain the absolute discretion or the maximum discretion for council, each time a license is retired, we would be recommending to reduce the cap to that level. That then allows the council in the future to determine whether a new applicant should be granted that use where they want to open a new Class 2 tobacco outlet, but have the most discretion available for council to either approve or deny those requests in the future. So it's anticipated that this cap will change and will be adjusted upwards if the council finds that a use is in an appropriate location for a standalone tobacco outlet. And I would imagine that those circumstances will come forward. But we have other places where we have multiple Class 2 licenses within hundreds of feet of one another. And I think the purpose of this was to address the council's concern of the oversaturation of those types of outlets. And in addition, those outlets in neighborhoods where you prefer that this very profitable part of the business might be part of a grocery store or a gas station that otherwise wouldn't be supported in that neighborhood because it wouldn't be profitable enough. So those are all the reasons around why we maintain the cap. Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome. Did that answer your question, Councilmember Valpula?
Partly, but I still am not convinced with the explanation. So
Right.
why do we actually need to close it? I understand we need to be restrictive, we need to have an oversight, but why when there is a license that is open, why not it be issued to, a new business who actually, probably will follow the rules and get the things, because once you put a cap on this one, we actually have to reopen this again, go play it by ear rather than leaving it like that, and see if any new business might take it, who will be more responsible. It's just my thought on it.
Any response to that?
I would indicate that the council cedes a significant amount of its discretion to deny tobacco license applicant in the city, anywhere that applicant would choose, if it doesn't maintain the cap in this fashion. And so the purpose of maintaining the cap is not to deny new businesses, but to give the council the maximum discretion about where those businesses might locate. For instance, at this location, the councilman of this district had previously expressed to me directly concern for the type of situation that was created by the presence of this business at this location, the former location that was retired. So it was a relief to that councilman that that type of business would no longer be within that location. So that's a perfect example of why we maintain the cap. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Riggenbach?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to thank Corporation Counsel and his office for keeping track of these numbers. And I think it's important to note that we're talking about standalone tobacco establishments here. And as a district council member, I can certainly speak to the fact that standalone tobacco establishments are not highly regarded by many in the community. This is not prohibiting the expansion of that, but it allows us to view that on a case-by-case basis. And I think that's some leverage that all of us would like to maintain. So I would move to receive and file.
Okay, seconded by, Councilmember Jackson. Any additional discussion? And again, we're not voting on this tonight. We're just voting to receive and file. So there's time for more discussion on this in between our next meeting and certainly at our next meeting. Any other discussion tonight? Councilmember Allen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Corporation Counsel Hayes, have you all noticed other municipalities adopting similar ordinances as far as caps on standalone tobacco retailers?
Well, I was familiar from this device from my former role, where we utilized it in the liquor licensing environment for the same purposes and reasons about where those would locate and having the maximum amount of control. I'm not aware of other municipalities that are utilizing this device for tobacco ordinances. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. All right, the motion is to receive and file. Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Velpula?
Yeah.
Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
25-94 is a communication from the City Manager and Corporation Council with a request to receive and file a first reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 30, Article 5, Section 30-298 of the Code of the City of Peoria relating to towing of private vehicles fees.
Either Mr. Manager or Corporation Counsel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll turn the floor over to our Corporation Counsel.
Okay.
Thank you again, Your Honor.
You're welcome.
Haven't you had enough of me already? So we have had a rotational tow list for many years. There's a blend of our regulations and state regulations in this environment. This tool comes forward when individuals are either apprehended by law enforcement or vehicles are disabled on public ways and need to be towed away on public property. And so there's a rate schedule for those events. Back in 2019, the council took up the idea of modernizing and increasing those fees. They had been $100 for a rotation toll for some period of time, over a decade, as I recall. And so at that time, the fee was adjusted and increased from $100 to $150, a substantial increase. And then there was an annual adjustment of $5 per year. I believe the idea was to keep pace with inflation. Advocates in this arena, led by Donnie Stanton, who operates Mr. Towit, one of our longstanding towing operators that participates in our rotational tow list, asked staff and the council to consider increasing the fees. Their request was for a substantial increase from $175 as the tow fee was established by that increasing rate on January 1st, 2024, to $250. And they had indicated that they had persuaded some other jurisdictions that that was an appropriate adjustment given the cost factors that that industry was facing. But as this is largely an involuntary episode on behalf of individuals who find themselves with their vehicles being towed, some who are apprehended by law enforcement, but others that are involved in an auto accident and not able to operate their car or might have been carted away to the hospital. We felt that an adjustment consistent with CPI would be more appropriate for our residents, particularly our residents of limited means. But that having no adjustment might run the risk of towing operators no longer choosing to participate. Now, we have a roster of 9 operators with 10 different entities that we're aware of operating in our jurisdiction to do these tows. And so we feel that that's a robust number and it meets our needs. When we make the call for a tow, we get a response, and if one can't do it because they're tied up, we're able to go to the next one. And our law enforcement officers aren't tied up at scenes for excessive period of time. So it's important for us to maintain that list of people, but we feel that an adjustment with CPI would be more appropriate. It turns out that because of the inflationary spikes over the last few years, that our $5 per year adjustment did not, in fact, keep pace with inflation, but an adjustment instead of 175 to 185 would set us at where CPI would have put us if we started making those adjustments off of the $150 rate in 2020. So our recommendation from the staff's perspective is to modify the rate to 185 to mark what inflation has brought us to date, and modify the rate by $5 each January 1st. Because this is a rate change, it can't become effective less than 10 days before the council ultimately passes it. So we would recommend that those rates be effective June 1st for ease of administration, and that council consider this matter for passage on May 13th. This is being a first reading. Okay. I don't know if there's any questions, but thank you, Your Honor. Happy to answer any if there are.
Thank you. Councilmember Graham?
Mayor Lee and Council, Mr. Donnie Stanton asked if he could address this issue. Since this is going to be a first reading, perhaps we could get some feedback from those affected in the industry. Are you here, Mr. Stanton? I see you. Unless there's an objection.
Sure.
Come on up, Mr. Stanton.
Appreciate the time to be able to speak on this situation. My name's Donnie Stanton. I own Mr. Toad's Wrecker Service at 1911 Southwest Washington Street in Peoria. I've been a tower for the city of Peoria for over 35 years. That's been a long time. In those 35 years, the city's only gave towers 3 raises in 35 years. Now, I'm sure most of you have regular jobs. I'm sure you've received more than 3 raises in 35 years. I would hope so. As Mr. Hayes spoke, there's a little confusion. We didn't persuade any other municipalities or cities to go to a higher rate. I gave Mr. Hayes and I've gave other city officials documentations from other cities, other municipalities of what they charge. Because we have not received a raise in so many years on a regular basis, it's put the city of Peoria way behind everybody else. So the sticker shock in 2020, like he claims was a high raise, it still didn't put us where everybody else is. I mean, we're so far behind what we're getting from other cities. Even the 250 would just put us where everybody else is now. So the paperwork that he received in 2023, the state police put out a suggested retail price. And that's what we've been going off of. That's what all the other communities have already adopted since January 1st. The only ones that have not yet is the city of Peoria, the city of East Peoria, which is going in front of their city council too. I get that you're going off the inflation cost, but I will tell you the inflation cost is nowhere near the inflation that's hit the towing community. And I know nobody likes to hear numbers, and I know nobody wants to hear me sit up here and cry, but in 2020, my last 2 trucks in 21, after we signed the contract, were $105,000 a piece. To replace that truck tomorrow now is $178,000. For one flatbed to be on rotation costs you $178,000. The big wreckers to be on rotation now max $1 million a piece. But yet we're dictated to what we can charge and can't charge. I'm not even given the fair fact to explain why we went to these 250 rates. I'm just told, nope, we go up the COLA increase, that's what you get, too bad. That's the response I got. That's not right. I understand it affects the community. And another clarification, it affects impounded tows where somebody was arrested, did a crime. Yes, it does affect those. But if a car breaks down in the middle of the road, those aren't impounded tows. Those are generally covered by insurance, covered by roadside service. And even if it comes back to our lot, a lot of the cars are covered by insurance. So it does affect many businesses that operate here in the city of Peoria. And everybody that's on this list is a South Side business. We employ people, we pay taxes, we pay everything just like any other business. I'm just asking for you guys to look at this a little closer. I think going from 175 to 185 is a slap in the face when we're still behind, like I've already explained. So I just ask everybody to think about that. I understand, yes, 175 to 250 is a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot, okay? But my insurance for my company to be on your list raised $6,100 alone last year. That's 15%. The cost of living, 5%, and the cost of the trucks and the cost of employees, pretty soon their towers aren't, that's why we've went from 21 on the list to 9. Guys can't afford it. So, that's, I just ask everybody to take that into consideration. It is a lot. But you got to also understand all the other communities have understood that and went to the 250. Like I said, it's just you and East Peoria. And we'll know from East Peoria in the next few weeks. But it didn't sound like it was going to be an issue there. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for your input, sir.
Mayor Lee.
Yes, Councilman Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Stanton. I appreciate that input. Council Hayes, you mentioned that you have 2 classes or separate groups of people, and we should be sympathetic toward those people who are involved in accidents, right? And therefore, we should be careful not to raise it too high because we have hapless people involved in accidents. And then we have the people who aren't so hapless, who cause problems. Maybe we should consider a 2-tier system on that. People who, for no reason of their own, have their cars towed, treated with a different rate than those people who are out there causing problems in our community. Just some thoughts that I have on it. I've watched this now for almost 30 years. And he's quite correct. There's hardly been any increase in this industry. And I think before we know it, we're going to be having very few companies who are going to want to bid for this. So I think it's something on a first reading we should consider a 2-tier system. And then perhaps you could offer that as a menu item for the council to say yes or no on next time. Because we're all sympathetic toward those people who are hapless, involved in accidents, et cetera, but not so sympathetic toward the others.
When someone challenges an involuntary tow, some of these folks that are for illegal purposes, have been arrested or apprehended or whatever, we have to afford them the ability to challenge that, and they often are successful in the administrative process getting that reversed, and then the city pays these fees. So we're a little leery of increasing the fee when we have 9 or 10 operators right now. We haven't had a lot of operators fall off since I started here. I don't know the long-term history that Mr. Stanton knows, but until we see a dearth of responses to our calls, I think that the rates are working. I get that they're in a tough business, but our residents that pay these fees many of them are very limited means. So a lot of these tows kind of wind up sometimes costing them a vehicle because they can't afford to have them released from impound. So these are not the only expenses that people face in those circumstances. This is just a tow fee. They also have an impound fee and things like that. So it gets quite expensive. But I understand the point. I'll look and see whether there's any comparators that have a different rate. I did look to see what other major communities are doing, and I don't believe there's a large amount of empirical data justifying the type of increase that Mr. Stanton is requesting, and I asked him for that, and he didn't produce it. So I have not done an empirical study of other jurisdictions, but I haven't found a lot that are at 250. So I'll look more over the next couple of weeks and report back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I think that towing is many times one of the fees associated in certain situations because, there may be some impoundment fees as well, and those occur on a daily basis. So, yes, I could see this being a very expensive endeavor. And Councilman Greb, I have to say I would be concerned about a 2-tier system because it's a judgment call. Who are the bad guys and who are the good guys? And in some cases, it has not yet been determined because, you haven't went to court. There hasn't been a decision made on whether somebody is at fault. So I would just err on the side of caution with regard to a 2-tiered system.
I think something that's new here, Mayor, that we should consider as a council is that we have had recent legislation, again, exogenous to us, coming from Springfield, that now mandates that stolen vehicles be stored at no charge for the first 7 days, and access to the vehicles must be provided without charge. And I think that means a lot of wear and tear on the businesses and time that they have to spend and considerable losses of revenue for the businesses. So I think there's a overarching picture that I think the council, I'm not going to be here, needs to take a look at when it is brought forward. This is the time to weigh in with the first reading, and I appreciate your comments as well.
Thank you. Councilmember Allen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Corporation Counsel Hayes, just a couple of questions. Maybe Mr. Stanton may have this information, or any of the other operators that we contract with. Is there any data that we can look at to see what percentage of the towers are private pay versus are utilizing their personal insurance? Is that possibly available?
We don't have that information available. That would be the towing industry that has all that. So they don't have to report back to us how or who pays for those services. So we don't have a means right now, a ready means to report that accurately to council.
Mm-hmm. And so maybe that's a conversation to have with our providers to see if they would be willing to share some of that, just so that way we can maybe see a pattern of who's more private pay, who's more so paying out of their insurance. And then the second piece that I wanted to ask, currently, do we have a voucher system or some type of assistance for those who aren't able to afford to get their car, pay the towing fee or the impound fees, or any type of assistance or any type of voucher system based off of income or anything like that to help an individual?
We don't have a system like that presently, Councilman.
Okay. So just some things to consider. I'm definitely very empathetic to Mr. Stanton's comments talking about, you know, a truck that he bought several years ago was $107,000 and now going up to $170,000. I mean, that is a huge increase in costs. But also, too, I'm thinking about citizens who are doing their best just to maybe get by. And as you keep tacking on these fees, it makes things just a little bit more tough. So definitely worth us having the conversation of how we find that balance of being sympathetic to our businesses that are providing a service to our constituents, but also to being sympathetic to their financial situation as well, too. Thank you, Corporation Counsel, and thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Councilmember Gordon Young?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Corporation Counsel, you actually touched on what I was going to mention. Just the accumulation of fees, like I'm concerned about that. I know numerous people who have lost their vehicles. I mean, I spent a lot of time working at the Peoria Police Department and calling those tolls who were on rotation. And so I'm very familiar with how this works. And it is, the toll fee, people are going to pay it. I just paid $95 for a tow. And I thought that was a lot. So again, like I understand the price that's being set, but I'm concerned more about the accumulation of fees. I mean, there are people that by the time they can get, you know, a paycheck in to pay this, it's up to $400 or $500. And that just, I think it would be helpful if we could come up with some type of voucher system. I think that's a great idea to at least consider. And then for those who, it's their vehicle, but not their fault. You know, someone had their vehicle, or, you know, there are all kinds of circumstances. So I do agree with the comment of how do we determine who's at fault? And, you know, we can't always determine that right away to even have a tier system. So again, I understand the providers, their perspective, but I'm really concerned about the mounting fees. I mean, it really can get out of hand. And just to see, I mean, people are struggling quite often. And I don't want to see folks lose their car just because they cannot afford to get it out of tow. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. I can't recall, Madam Clerk, whether we got a motion to receive and file.
This is a motion to receive and file.
Did we get a motion?
No.
Okay, I need a motion to receive and file, moved by Councilmember Graham, seconded by Councilmember Riggenbach. And if there's no more questions or comments, please cast your ballots. Councilmember Valpula?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Madam Clerk?
We are on to regular business. 25-95 is a communication from the City Manager and Corporation Counsel with a request for the following. A, approve an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Washington and the City of Peoria for the loan of the city's sculpture depicting George Washington. And B, approve a First Amendment to the loan agreement between the Peoria Riverfront Museum and the City of Peoria. And we will need separate motions on each, please.
Okay, Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The item here in front of you tonight, back in 2022, we entered into a loan agreement with the Peoria Riverfront Museum to take the George Washington bust out of Fulton Plaza and move it down to the riverfront. That agreement allowed for them to move the bust, put it on display, take it off display as they desired. But then they were reached out to by the City of Washington to see if they could take the bust during their bicentennial here over the next several months. So the museum doesn't have the authority to grant that. You do as the council. So that's why this is coming back to you with an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Washington that would allow for the bust to be displayed in the city between this week and September 5th of this year, and then it would come back to the museum. During that same period of time, they would cover all the insurance costs for insuring the bust. It's valued at a price that's in the packet. It's about $60,000, I think, is the cost of what we're estimating it to be. We had it appraised. So they're gonna ensure that the bust is protected during that period of time, and then when it comes back, it'll come back onto the loan agreement with the PRM. So those are the two items that you have in front of you this evening.
Great, and I would add that CEO of the Riverfront Museum, John Morris, had reached out with this request. It just seems like the good thing to do as our neighbor, and hopefully everyone can agree to approve the items A and B.
Madam Mayor, one other item, that there is a yellow sheet. There was a couple of minor changes, grammatical changes that were made by the legal department, and that's why it was turned into a yellow sheet for you.
Okay. Any questions, or can I get a motion? Councilmember Euler? Seconded by Councilmember Allen. Any questions, comments? Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Valpula?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Councilmember Euler?
Move.
Seconded by Councilmember Allen. Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Valpula?
Yeah.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Madam Clerk?
25-96 is a communication from the City Manager, Corporation Counsel, and Finance Director Comptroller with a request for the following. A, adopt an ordinance amending and recodifying the municipal retailer's occupation tax and municipal services occupation tax, and or B, adopt an ordinance implementing a municipal grocery retailer's occupation tax and a municipal grocery services occupation tax, or C, adopt an ordinance amending the municipal retailer's occupation tax and municipal services occupation tax at 2%, or D, adopt an ordinance amending the municipal retailer's occupation tax and municipal services occupation tax at 2.25%.
Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to turn the floor over to our Finance Director, Kyle Craddy, to walk through this item.
Okay.
Director?
Thank you, Mr. Manager. So I will walk through the memo that was provided to council as well as staff's recommendations. But as we kind of start the discussion, I want to kind of level set to why we are where we are right now. You know, the reality is the state of Illinois has been collecting a 1% grocery tax on behalf of municipalities for decades. That is a revenue source that municipalities have relied on for that period of time. Really, the discussion around the changes really started, if you think back to July 1st of 2022, when there was a moratorium put on the 1% grocery tax. During that time period, the state did make cities and municipalities whole for that amount, but I think that was kind of the opening point at which this was a discussion. Fast forward to the governor's budget address in 2024. where he announced his intent to work with the state legislature to repeal the grocery tax. That passed in August of 2024. During that repeal, they also provided municipalities the opportunity to levy the tax locally under a municipal grocers retailer occupation tax. Sorry, some of these are very long definitions. And so that is kind of what we're here to talk about tonight, is the city's options looking at adoption of that 1% grocery tax. In terms of the impact to the city's financials, when we had a conversation with the council back in early 2024, our analysis looked at the impact being around $4 million a year. As we prepared for this agenda item and looking at kind of how our sales taxes have come in, we believe the number is closer to $5 million. So really the impact to the city's bottom line, if this is not approved, would be a loss of $5 million into the general fund. In terms of context, that is about 4% of our general fund revenue, and it is larger than 11 of our 14 operational departments that are housed in the general fund. The only departments that it is smaller than are Public Works, Fire, and Police. All the rest, it is larger. Looking back at our budget discussion, I guess at this point now, about 6 months ago, one of the items I always provide to council is a financial modeling of where really the next 5 years are going to go. And I think just as important, when are we going to hit our reserve levels, right? The recommended reserve levels for the city is 25% of our general fund expenditures. The modeling that was provided to council during that budget process had us getting close to that number late in 2028. If there is no replacement for the grocery tax or no cuts made to offset that, the city would be looking at now hitting the reserve levels in early 2027. So we're jumping almost 2 full calendar years earlier than we anticipated, which will affect our ability to use reserves for our police and fire pension obligations. So that's really where kind of some of that impact is. I think just important is the discussion on the impact to households and individuals with this tax. Obviously, when you're looking at implementing a tax, I think people look at it as it's going to be an addition of a tax for them. The reality with this tax, because it's been in place for decades, there will be no direct impact to their bottom line in terms of what they're paying right now. But in terms of what it averages out to, based off of really ranging from an individual to families, we believe that we're probably in the neighborhood of $70 to $150 per year would be the impact of this tax staying in place. I think the other item I just want to kind of put forward with this that I think is important to remember in this conversation is it's not just Peoria residents that pay this tax. Peoria continues to be a location that people come to do their shopping. And so the burden of paying that tax is from anyone who lives in any of the surrounding communities that shops in Peoria. Some of the other options that were listed in the memo, some of those would be fully paid for by the residents of Peoria. So I just wanted to have that on the table for everyone to kind of remember as we have that conversation. In terms of alternatives, I know Councilman Grape requested kind of during this discussion. Staff did look at 2 options in terms of looking at our home rule sales tax. So our home rule sales tax right now sits at 1.75%. If we were to look at increasing that 0.25%, that would generate an additional $4.3 million. So looking at the basic math on that, we'd be about $700,000 short of our potential loss with the grocery tax. If we were to raise it an additional 0.5%, that would generate $8.6 million. So that'd be an extra $3.6 million over what the grocery tax is generating. But at the end of the day, and it was in the memo, staff is not recommending those options as part of this. We wanted to have them on the table for council consideration. It really has to do with our competitiveness with our sales tax rates compared to our neighboring communities. Right now, we are close to what our neighboring communities charge for sales tax. This number would jump us that additional 0.25% to 0.5%. That would put us a little bit out of line with our neighboring communities. So we just didn't feel that was a viable option for consideration. Another item that we did look at that we just did not feel was a valid solution was looking at our HRA tax collections, so our hotel, restaurant, and amusement tax. The reality with increasing those, we would almost need to double rates. And that would potentially mean if you went out to dinner downtown, you'd be paying about 14% to go out to dinner. And that just is not something that we felt was a viable option in comparison to the impact of the grocery tax. The last one we looked at that obviously I think we look at as the most unpalatable option is adding this amount to the property tax levy. Doing that would add about a 15% increase to every homeowner's tax bill. And obviously, where the climate is around property taxes, staff did not feel that that was a good recommendation to make. Also in the council communication, we also wanted to provide council really what the impact would be on services if the grocery tax is not implemented. Because that is a reality of what we would live in if we do not have the grocery tax in place. Just for a little bit of additional context, I this afternoon took the time to kind of look at what's the makeup of our general fund, right? Like what are those things that are in there? And so almost 13% of our general fund is legally obligated spending. So things like debt service, things like our pension obligations, things like our agreements with folks with like the Civic Center. So that makes up 13% of our overall spending in the general fund. 54% of it is made up in public safety. So that is our police and firemen on the street, our folks at ECC doing all the dispatch calls. That makes up about 54% of our spending. Infrastructure maintenance makes up about 12%. So that's our public works crews out doing preventative maintenance, filling potholes, doing crack sealing, and doing snow removal. 3% of that is made up in community development. And so that's looking at our code enforcement, our compliance with our building codes, and those kind of items. The other 18% is made up across the 8 city departments that are support departments. So city manager's office, finance department, legal department, HR, clerk's office, treasurer's office. So if you kind of look at that in terms of an average, that means each of those departments is about 2%. So as you can see, in terms of that context, elimination of the grocery tax would heavily impact, I think, some core services that the residents of Peoria have come to expect and appreciate. Obviously in the memo, we did go over options that council could undertake in terms of cost cuts. The first item looking at the fire department was elimination of Rescue 1. So that is the dedicated rescue squad that currently responds to EMS calls. That was the last add that the council made to the fire department budget, so that was why it was one of the options on the table. The other was the elimination of the traffic division within the police department. So that's looking at the traffic officers as well as parking enforcement. And really the aim was an attempt to keep patrol intact. In terms of preventative maintenance, we would reduce our preventative maintenance in our public works department. So that would be less of that crack sealing in the winter, pothole repairs when we have our freeze thaws. So it's going to affect really the long-term use and viability of our road infrastructure, which could in the long run, frankly, cost us more money in capital improvements. It also included reductions in our environmental code enforcement. So that's our code enforcement officers going out and also doing our weed and litter pickup contracts, as well as some of our lot clearing to lower some of those. We also eliminated the neighborhood mini grant program. That's a relatively popular program that a lot of the neighborhood associations use. That is something that we extended with the use of some leftover funds from ARPA. But in future years, that would be a program we would not be able to fund. And then lastly, looking at some of our administrative departments, as we touched on earlier, that would be close to an elimination of 10% of staffing across the board in all of those departments. So that's going to heavily affect our customer service, whether it's from, AR, legal, and a lot of those other functions that the community uses. And so in kind of wrapping that up, and it is included in the memo, staff recommends adoption of option A, and I actually will have the Corporation Council explain option A a little bit more here in a second. And staff is recommending the adoption of item B, which is the 1% grocery tax. And staff is not recommending the approval of items C or D. And with that, I'm available for any questions from the council.
Questions thank you very much, and especially for delineating those recommended cuts if the grocery tax at 1% is not approved. Any questions for Director Craddy? Can we hear from Corporation Council on the codification of what is that called? An ordinance amending and recodifying the municipal retailers occupation tax and municipal services occupation tax.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes.
The city's occupation tax rate has been modified. The municipal retailers occupation tax and service occupation tax has been modified on a couple of occasions. The Illinois Department of Revenue has put out a model ordinance for those types of changes, and because state law requires the retailer's tax and the service tax to be imposed at the same rate, that model ordinance from the Department of Revenue has those in a single section. At one point in time, the city had that rate, those both expressed in a single section, but got away from that, and now has those rates in different sections. So I'm recommending that we go back to the model ordinance structure, have those rates expressed in a single section, and make a further clarification of a statutory change that occurred last year about rented items. These are not changing any tax rates. In fact, it won't change the way that taxes are being imposed and collected by the state of Illinois on our behalf. But it will clarify our ordinance for future reference and or any changes. That's why I found this out, because I was making preparation for alternative C and D. So even though we're not going to do that, I think we should recodify to make sure that our ordinance is consistent with that model from the Department of Revenue. So thank you for indulging your geeky lawyer moment, but we're recommending those technical changes regardless of any other action the council takes tonight. And let me assure you, this is not modifying any current tax rates. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. So this is really cleaning up the language and putting it in line with the existing model, and there are no financial consequences to this cleanup.
That's correct, Your Honor. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Questions? Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Director Craddy, again, thank you for your overview. Just for clarification, the grocery tax has been in existence since the 70s, if I understand it correctly, and then in 1990, it changed to where the state was collecting those funds and then passing them through to municipalities in 1990. Is that fair to say?
As is always interesting when you're trying to go back and recreate history a little bit, right? It can be a little murky to exactly understand how we got where we are. To the best of what I can figure out, 1990 is when the current model was put in place at the state level with the 1% grocery in terms of how it is being handled right now. Up until that point, the state of Illinois also used to tax grocery, but in some of really what happened is coming out of 1970 with some changes in terms of home rule taxation, it got a little murky and difficult for the Department of Revenue to really manage what was out there. And so 1990, this was in essence a give back from the state to, in essence, take away some authority from municipalities under the home rule statute. So that's really where, if you look at the 1990 number, That's where I feel most comfortable saying the current format, so about 35 years has been the 1% as it's currently constituted. But going back through history, really groceries have been taxed in the state of Illinois since the adoption of sales tax back in 1933. It wasn't until 1980 that they reduced the amount that was taxed down to a lower number. And so really from a consumer standpoint, groceries have been taxed in Illinois since 1933.
Thank you for the history lesson, Director Craddy. Can you next speak to what legislative authority do we have as a local municipality when it comes to taxes? I understand we have authority over sales tax, we have authority over property taxes, but do we have any authority when it comes to income taxes, for example?
This might actually be a question I would probably give to our corporation counsel, just because it's more in his wheelhouse.
So municipalities are preempted from imposing any sort of income tax. And so that's a bright line that the state's taken all that. That was part of all this bargain of home rule and how taxes would occur along with the 1970 Constitution. This is where we got the personal property replacement tax as a fix. So there was a lot of change at that point from local taxing authority with the 1970 Constitution, and that's when municipalities lost the ability to tax any kind of income. Thank you.
No, I appreciate that, and by no means am I an expert on tax code, so I appreciate you all giving us some historical context there. And the decision before us today is not an easy one. We know that our constituents are doing their best to navigate their financial situation, as well as us as a municipality trying to balance our budget, providing basic core services to our constituents. When I look at what is being potentially impacted, these are things that our constituents rely on. Fire services, traffic enforcement. As a district council member, one of my top concerns that I hear about is speeding. The neighborhood mini grant program, we talk about creating social connectiveness and vibrancy for our different neighborhoods throughout the community, code enforcement, preventative maintenance, and customer service. When our constituents are coming here to take care of their business, they want to make sure that they have a swift and smooth transaction. So again, not an easy decision before us for those of us around the horseshoe, but I appreciate the effort that staff put in here to give us the information we need to make the best decision. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Conceptually, it seems like a great idea for the governor and the state to eliminate the grocery tax. And of course, it sounds really good until you begin to look at the local impact. And that's really what happened, is that, the state eliminated this grocery tax, and they started getting a lot of feedback from localities, mayors and council members, to say, this is going to be a $4 million impact to our city, or this is going to be a $2.5 million impact to our city. And I think that it was put out there without fully understanding the local impact that would impact services and impact jobs to local communities. And that's exactly what happened here. This was a tax that was collected by the state, but it was passed through the state. It was passed on to the locality. And for us, initially, a few months ago, we thought it was $4 million impact, which would have been unpalatable just at that. But we learned that it's a $5 million impact. And of course, it would save families or households somewhere between $70 and $150 per year. But the cost of cutting $2 million of fire safety, $1 million of police safety, cutting those workers, those maintenance workers that we just hired to address issues within our roads and our streets, and other services within the city of Peoria would far more outweigh that $70 to $150 per annum, per year. So, while it's a difficult decision, Councilman, it's not a difficult decision because, you know, I think we have to protect our citizens in terms of their safety, and we're talking about public safety, fire and police. We have to provide services that are needed in terms of code enforcement, in terms of road maintenance, and we cannot afford these cuts. And these are annual cuts. It's not just a one-time deal. It's something that will happen every year moving forward. We're just not able to take on these reductions in services and reductions in staffing at this level. So I encourage the council to adopt. Of course, A is easy, it's just cleaning up the language, but B is reinstituting the grocery tax as a local grocery tax. And basically, it's the city collecting the same tax that the state collected and returned to us. It's a different collection process. And I would like to ask Corporation Counsel Hayes, how does that change? I'm really grateful that the governor and the state allowed municipalities to be able to collect the tax. I mean, at one point, that may not have been the case, but once they understood the impact, they made that provision. And we're talking about this is effective January 1st, 2026. How do we make the change from the state collecting the tax to the city collecting the tax?
In fact, the state presently collects the tax under state law. The change will be that local municipalities will establish by ordinance that the tax is to be imposed within their jurisdiction. And then that'll be imposed by the state and collected and then distributed by the state. It's the authorizing law, which will shift from state law to an ordinance, a local ordinance. That'll be the only change. The Department of Revenue has a regime that addresses local ordinances that impose state administrated taxes. That's how we collect our municipal retailers' occupation tax today. That's how we are benefiting by the grocery tax today.
Okay.
It's just the underlying authorization will no longer be the revenue code from the state. It'll be the local ordinance that we pass under the municipal code.
So there would be another ordinance that comes back to this body, or no? This is the ordinance.
Is it, and then
Okay.
that ordinance has to be placed on file, a certified copy of it has to be placed on file with the Department of Revenue prior to October 1st. And that direction is within the draft ordinance that's in front of you for consideration this evening.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you for that clarification. Councilmember Vespa?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do agree with the comments, and especially from Council Hayes, Director Craddy, clarifying that we don't have a whole host of options. And obviously we can't do the income tax. The state can only do that. So we're left with some regressive options. And the grocery tax is a regressive tax. I agree with the governor. By that I mean it puts more of a tax burden on the households of the poor and middle class than it does the rich. So if you have $100 that you spend on your grocery tax a year, that means a lot to the poor household budget. That means a lot to the middle class household budget. It means, just like tariffs coming in, I don't want to get national here, but you know, if you put $100 on every dishwasher, you know, that's something out of millionaires and billionaires' fever dreams, because it means nothing to them, but it means everything to poor and middle class people. So I don't like this tax, but we don't have perfect options here. And we just don't have good alternatives, so I have to support it. And I won't support the cuts that would happen if we were to not institute this tax. You know, we've heard already from Director Craddy. Decommissioning rescue number 1, which I think we all voted for. I think there might have been one dissent, but we almost unanimously supported that about a year ago, which is a dedicated emergency medical response engine and crew. We would cut police traffic enforcement, and we've all seen that we've had ambulance and school bus crashes the last few days. I think we all know speeding, not only that is a problem, but distracted driving is a problem. It wouldn't shock me if that contributed to those crashes. So I don't like getting rid of traffic enforcement. Ending preventative road maintenance, I totally agree. I think that would probably cost you in the long run. I mean, it's kind of like ignoring a cavity in your teeth. If you do that long enough, you're going to have to do a lot more eventually to fill it, and it's going to cost you. Ending the neighborhood mini grant program, I mean, that might be the low-hanging fruit here, but I know that is very popular with the neighborhoods here in Peoria. I hear a lot of neighborhood associations that love it, spruce up their neighborhoods. Ending weed litter mowing of vacant lots and homes, I think that was called environmental. That's unfortunately going to hit the poor neighborhoods more than it would the wealthier ones if we were to stop doing that. So I don't want to take that measure either. And then cuts to administrative city staff. We've talked. That's going to delay things like issuing of permits and licenses. We'll get a lot of complaints for that too. So let's be clear though. I mean, we're not raising taxes. We're not increasing the tax burden on anybody by keeping this in effect. This is a 1% grocery tax that's been in effect for decades. I would be open to alternatives. Unfortunately, right now, I just don't see any good ones. So I will be a yes on this. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Councilmember Gordon Young.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think that through talking to many of the constituents regarding this topic, there's been some confusion. So first of all, I want to thank you for your clarity and for putting this in very practical terms. We just cannot afford to sacrifice public safety and public services, in exchange for something that has already been in existence. And so, I'll be very brief in my comments, but because I am definitely in support of making sure that we keep public safety, at the forefront, and we're not sacrificing any public services. Again, I think many of the constituents just weren't very clear on what this means, and because financial circumstances can be tough for people, many of us are looking for some way to save some money, but we cannot save money at the risk of losing lives and also losing jobs and livelihoods. So I will be in support of this. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with my colleagues on the other side of the horseshoe. And I appreciate your clarity on the fact that, that we're not doing anything different from what has already existed. I just want to say, I do remember, I want to say it was 2008, 2010, the city had to make some substantial cuts. We cut public works, we cut code enforcement, we cut police, and we are still reeling from the effects of that to the point to where code enforcement still is struggling to keep up with its daily responsibilities. Yet we have spent, $134 million in infrastructure capital improvements over the last 2 years. And so to see this kind of progress with infrastructure capital improvements, and yet the only alternative we have before us is cutting staff, would, in my mind, set us back in terms of the, the infrastructure and the capital improvement map that we have created over the last 2 years. And so, I think we are doing the right thing by trying to just keep things the way they have existed. And I definitely would not like to see a situation like we had in 2010, because I think with the staffing cuts and the cuts in police and fire, we have tried to maintain. And so based on that, I think I am going to support this, Madam Mayor, because I don't want to see any of the progress that we've made set back at this point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Graham?
Well, we received several hundred emails, and I'm not particularly pleased with the governor's action on this. So many of our problems in this chamber for many, many years have not been generated from this chamber or from the city of Peoria. They've been exogenous or outside our control, whether it's pensions or whatever it is. So I was kind of amused when we got several hundred emails stating that maybe we should have a billionaire's tax and maybe Governor Pritzker should be the first to help pay the grocery tax that is going to have to be levied, or municipalities will take a huge hit in terms of quality of life for its citizens and service levels. What are the odds? What are the odds that even a democratically controlled General Assembly in Springfield would adopt a billionaire tax to cover this? Sadly, it ain't going to happen. I wish it would. I really do. But especially when the governor, through his actions, determines all of a sudden, this is a regressive tax. It hurts the little people. I'm sorry, but the truth needs to be spoken. So we're put into an impossible situation because we know it's probably not going to happen. Now, in the event that we would get a billionaire's tax assessed down in Springfield, we could always roll this back or not even implement it come the 1st of January of 26. But I have to live in the real world, Mayor Lee.
Yes, sir.
And I mean, I really am sympathetic to the sentiments that were contained in these emails. Some of them seem to come from people outside Peoria, but some of them come from my neighbors. And I always listen most carefully to those comments that come from people who live in our city and who are genuinely sympathetic and concerned about the impact this will have on our people. And the governor raised all this issue by saying how regressive it is and how unfair it is. So in a way, it would be, given the state legislature's compliments of the governor, it's just desserts to have them or implore them to enact the billionaire's tax. But unless that happens, I think we're going to have to cover ourselves because I believe we have to act, by October 1. Mm-hmm. That's just how I feel about it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Councilman Regenbach?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Director Craddy, for that brief history lesson. I'm one of those guys old enough to remember when there was a 5% sales tax on groceries and when that went down to the 1%. So realizing that there has been a tax on groceries since 1933, I think also adds a little perspective to this. And it's been said and repeated tonight, but let me say it one more time. We're not raising a grocery tax. We're continuing a grocery tax that the General Assembly took away from us. With all due respect to our colleagues in Springfield, I think it's pretty disingenuous for them to take away a tax that they use to fund the municipalities. This was no skin off their back whatsoever. It was clearly putting the onus on the municipalities. I would say to my colleagues, if you think this is a tough decision tonight, it's going to be a tougher decision in October when we look at how we're going to fill that gap. These impact, if denied, those items that have been talked about, we're going to have to vote on each and every one of those as a line item in the budget. So we have one tough vote before us tonight, but we're going to have a lot of tough votes ahead of us in the budget cycle. There's so many uncertainties coming out of Washington right now, what our funding streams are going to be. On the proclamation I read, the CDBG, the home funds, all kinds of areas that we rely on funding from other sources are in jeopardy. I think it's important that we take this step tonight, that we remove what uncertainty we can from our staff to let them know that we're committed to providing this level of service that we have been for these last number of years. Whether it's Rescue 1, whether it's the traffic division, which, you know, we are just getting that going and up to the level that we want it to be. And, you know, maybe they'll find another area to cut, but the fact of the matter is there will be cuts that would be significant for the day-to-day lives of our constituents. So I think the responsible thing for us to do is to allow this tax to continue. Notice that operative word there, to continue. And clearly, as budgets come and go, things can be adjusted. But at this point, this is the most responsible action we can take, and I will be supporting the motion.
Thank you. And everybody that has spoken about this has been speaking to item B, which would be the 1% grocery tax, re-implementing that within the city. So at this point, I don't see any more lights. We are going to vote on each one of these, A, B, C, and D. And I would ask that we start with item A, and I'm asking for a motion to approve item A. Item A, adopt an ordinance to recodify the municipal retailers occupation tax and municipal services occupation tax. That is the cleanup language. Okay, moved by Councilman Riggenbach, seconded by Councilwoman Jackson. Any comments or questions? Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Valpula?
Yes.
Did you vote no? Motion passes unanimously. I would ask for a motion to approve item B, adopt an ordinance implementing a municipal grocery retailer's occupation tax and a municipal grocery services occupation tax. That is the 1%. Moved by Councilmember Greb, seconded by Councilmember Gordon Young. Discussion, Councilmember Euler.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Several questions. First of all, Director, do you have the 2026 revised budget prepared that we should be voting on?
No.
Because in my almost a decade sitting in this chair, we only make decisions like this at two different times, during the budget season and during a period where we think that there's going to be a significant cash flow problem. Do you anticipate us running out of cash in the next 30, 60, 90 days, even 8 months?
I do not at this point.
And this adjustment is due to go into effect January 1st of 2026?
Correct.
So what we're being asked to do tonight is to vote on something that is half-baked, essentially, because we don't have full revenue and expense projections for 2026 to make an accurate decision on.
Correct, but what I would add to that is that what this obviously does too is it allows staff to prepare the budget coming up in the next few months. with the known estimates on the revenue to give council a good, a budget that's within our means.
So really, in theory, there's no reason we're actually discussing this tonight. It could have been discussed during the last budget cycle. It could be discussed during the next budget cycle, and there's no imminent financial impact to why we're doing this tonight without the new council that has been elected having the ability to weigh in on a decision that will affect the term that they sit in this chair. So in effect, this is purely politically motivated that we're sitting here having this discussion tonight and taking this vote without the information that we need to make this decision, as well as without the people that will be responsible for making this decision. So I want it to be very clear to the public that I am going to vote yes on this, but that is only in an attempt to be on the prevailing side so that I can push for a reconsideration on the next council agenda so that we have the next couple of weeks to try to defeat this argument, because we shouldn't even be having the discussion right now. And when this meeting is over and this passes, I will be putting that formal request in that this comes back as a reconsideration on the next regularly scheduled council agenda. Thank you.
Are there any other comments before we vote?
Madam Mayor.
Yes. Yes.
I just wanted to clarify, there is a purpose to having the matter resolved in advance of the deadline, which is October 1st, in a hard deadline. In order to have the tax imposed on January 1st, there is a immovable deadline that a certified ordinance has to be on file at the Department of Revenue by that date. We clearly have time before that date to take action.
Sure.
But I just want to mention, we don't have all the way up to January 1st to take action. Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome. Councilmember Graham?
I don't believe we can have a motion to reconsider tonight unless we have a second. We have to pass something before we can reconsider anything. Pardon me? So how do we slate or put on the agenda an item which states that we're going to do a reconsideration? Can it just be brought up at the next business meeting? And you're giving informal notice, but they're not going to put down on the agenda that there's a motion to reconsider, because there is no motion to reconsider unless there's a second. And both of the people to reconsider have to be on the prevailing side. So that's the procedural reality of how it works.
Okay. Councilmember Euler?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Another clarification question. So we're assuming by doing this and presenting these numbers and these potential cuts that we're not going to get any revenue off of the valuation increases that should have an effect coming into the next year. Because what I'm looking at in this presentation that says that we need a dollar for dollar revenue increase to make up for a dollar for dollar grocery tax cut that would relate in a dollar for dollar cut to services if we don't do this.
What I would add to, just for clarification, is that none of our property tax revenues goes towards general operations. It all goes towards mostly pension obligations and a component of roads. And what I will say is, even with a larger valuation increase, we're still seeing our pension obligations grow at a faster rate. So we're still going to be in a position where we're going to have to offset some of that cost. So I just wanted to kind of make that clear that as of right now, how council has laid out the budgets in the past, none of that goes towards operations.
But in theory, we're being asked to make a decision without a full complement of numbers. We're looking at two specific things and a multi-hundred line item budget and making dollar for dollar decisions based on that. Say I had the votes to do a 10% across the board management salary cut. Would you say that I should do that right now? Or would you encourage me to hold off until budget season to do that when I actually have the full packet of numbers to look at?
I look at that as council's prerogative.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sorry to interrupt again. We do have a local rule about reconsideration. And to respond to Councilman Graham and Councilman Euler's indication, Our local rule indicates that a member desiring to have a matter reconsidered at the next regular meeting shall advise the clerk prior to 10 a.m. on the Friday before the meeting. The clerk shall then place the proposed motion to reconsider on the council agenda. I would consider Alderman or Councilman Euler's indication here to be sufficient to put the clerk on notice to have this on the next council agenda if the item passes. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. Councilmember Riggenbach?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Director Craddy, you indicated that by passing this ahead of budget preparation allows you to give us a more accurate estimate as you work with the department heads to prepare the budget. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, that is correct. So obviously one of the first steps we do is an analysis of where we believe revenues are going to be for the year. And as you stated earlier, there's a little bit of an unclear picture of where that could be this year, as most of our operations are funded through sales taxes, and the discussion of tariffs and the uncertainty, I will also admit, has me a little concerned. And so where we think those revenues are is the backbone of the recommendation that we make to the department heads in terms of kind of what are the CPI increases possible if we're looking at reductions, where we need to kind of look for reductions. And so it is the backbone of how we start the budget process, which I know it sounds a little early. We're going to probably be kicking off here in June with the staff.
So again, with the uncertainty that we have coming from Washington, this would just be another piece that would make your forecasting more difficult, not knowing until fall what the direction of the council would be.
That is correct.
I also think it's worthy of noting that the cuts that are listed in the agenda packet are hypothetical. Obviously, we're not making any cuts now, but in order to get to that $5 million mark, those are the type of cuts that would be required. So don't take that to the bank that we're losing those things, but those are the things that would be if pardon the expression, the easy picking to bridge that gap. So there's a lot more decisions to make, but I think it's important that this is passed tonight actually so that we can have that framework as the budget process unfolds. Thank you, Madam
Sure,
Mayor.
thank you. And that's why most cities have actually done this by now. We're actually a little late in the game, but it's better to know than to not know, and I think for us to make the decision now is the way to go. With no more comments, we are voting on item B. Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Velpula?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. We still have two more items to vote on, C and D. I'm sorry. Oh, I guess they're moot, right? Councilmember Hayes?
Suggest a motion to table B and C at this time. C and D, I'm
C
sorry.
and D to table?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you, Your Honor.
okay. Can I get a motion to table C and D, moved by Councilmember Gordon Young, seconded by Councilmember Allen? Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Velpula?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Madam Clerk?
25-97 is a communication from the City Manager and Corporation Council with a request to approve the site application for a Class B restaurant 50% food liquor license with on-site consumption and retail sale of alcohol for El Mirador in El Rio, doing business as Mirador in El Rio at 110 Northeast Water, contingent upon the issuance of a certificate of occupancy with a recommendation from the Liquor Commission to approve.
Corporation Counsel?
Thank you, Your Honor. As the council knows, the Pal Press building is the oldest building in downtown Peoria. It was moved to its present location, was originally a visitor center, and it's previously been an ice cream parlor, and now we've been able to activate it through the efforts of our Economic Development Department as a restaurant. The site's been improved to accommodate that restaurant, and the restaurant operators will operate El Mirador and El Rio. Sorry for the Midwest pronunciation of that. And they're asking for a site approval for a Class B restaurant liquor license with a subclass 3 beer garden. The site is fully improved for those purposes, has a raised level patio where the beer garden will take place. So it's a well-defined place, both indoor and exterior. It would operate from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on weekdays and closing at 10 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. They plan on being open June 8th, and so they're asking for site approval. Our staff departments that had input on this all suggested approval, and the Liquor Commission has recommended approval. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to respond. Thank you, Your Honor.
Welcome. Councilmember Graham?
Well, first of all, I would move for approval as outlined, but I also would like to take this opportunity, and probably the last significant business meeting, to thank Councilman Euler for all you have done to help generate activity, encourage activity, both in our downtown and our warehouse district. You've been a valuable ally, and I thank you very much for your work on that, and I hope my successor will work hand in glove with you, because you've been fantastic. And so I would move to approve as outlined.
Okay. Can I get a second? Seconded by Councilmember Allen. Any questions, comments? Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Valpula? Councilmember Valpula? Oh, I think he had to leave after that last. Okay. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
We are at unfinished business. 25-65 is a communication from the City Manager and Director of Community Development with a request to concur with recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff to adopt an ordinance approving a special use in a Class R1 single-family residential district for a short-term rental for the property located at 223 West Detweiler Drive.
In the absence of Councilmember Seer, I will move to defer agenda item 25-065, the request to approve a special use in a Class R1 single-family residential district for a short-term rental for the property located at 233 West Detweiler Drive to the May 13th, 2025 City Council meeting. Seconded by Councilmember Allen. Please cast your ballots. I usually don't. Yeah. Okay. Moved by Councilmember Euler, seconded by Councilmember Allen. Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Valpula is, okay. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, Madam Clerk?
We are on to new business.
Is there any new business? Councilmember Riggenbach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple weeks ago, the mayor and I were able to meet with Andy King, Executive Director of Dream Center, and they have been looking at the concept of tiny homes for a number of years and have done quite extensive research in that regard. He has a couple ideas that he's floating with our community development staff. Location obviously being one of the key elements of it, but they have a very holistic idea of how they would like to incorporate tiny homes into what their mission is already at the Dream Center. So nothing to report, no announcements or anything to be made, but I just wanted all of our council colleagues to know that Dream Center continues to be a shining light and looking at creative ways to address challenges that we're all facing and looking for solutions for. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're very welcome. Any other new business? Okay, Madam Clerk?
We are at Citizens Opportunity.
Okay. Is there another card? This is 1, 2, 4.
They spoke previously under towing.
They're gone?
Well, they had spoken previously under
Oh,
towing.
okay, got it. All righty. So we have 3 individuals that are going to speak under citizens' comments. First is Justin Smeltzer.
My name is Justin Smeltzer. I'm an electrician and rank and file member of UAW Local 974 and a member of Workers Strike Back, a nationwide organization and working people and union members fighting for a $25 an hour minimum wage, free health care for all, and good union jobs for all. I find it utterly despicable that Mayor Lee and the Democrats and Republicans on this city council have voted to impose a grocery tax on working people and poor people in Peoria. At a moment when we're facing soaring food prices and an overall cost of living crisis, grocery taxes are a deeply regressive form of taxation, meaning that they disproportionately affect working people and lower income households. The idea of a grocery tax is especially horrifying for poor Black households. Close to half of Black families in Peoria are in need of food assistance, and 40% live at or below the poverty line. Already, Trump's tariffs are predicted to cost families an additional $3,800 on average this year, with some of the highest tariffs impacting food prices. I have a growing family with 2 small children, and some weeks we struggle to come up with money for basic groceries. I know I'm not alone in this, and there are hundreds of thousands of working families in this state who are struggling to get by. Over 130 people have emailed Mayor Ali and the city council here telling them not to pass the grocery tax and to tax the rich instead. This is a false choice. Taxing working and poor people or forcing us to accept cuts to essential services like ambulance and firefighting and environmental protection, working people like myself cannot afford either. This is completely manufactured narrative that does not consider a tax on the rich to fund the city's needs. And this is not by accident. This is because these establishment politicians on the city council are deeply hostile to working people and they serve big business. Shame on Democratic Governor Pritzker and the state elected officials who are 2/3 Democrat, and on the Peoria City Council, who in this case has not even made an attempt to fight the Democrats' refusal to tax the rich. Illinois is home to some of the wealthiest people in the nation. 20 of the richest people in Illinois are billionaires, including Democratic Governor Pritzker and his family members. Trump and the Republicans are carrying out unprecedented attacks on working people, union members, immigrants, and the anti-war movement, and he has unleashed a wave of abductions and deportations and fired over 14,000 federal public sector workers, and has threatened to carry out massive cuts to Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And the Democratic Party has not only refused to fight back against Trump, they're also carrying out vicious budget cuts in cities and states across the nation. The real answer to these budget cuts, in this case created by the Illinois State Democrats, is for working people to reject the budget cuts, to reject austerity, to reject regressive taxation, and to fight to win taxes on the rich. This is what Socialist City Council member Shama Sawant did with the working people in Seattle when they built the Amazon tax movement to tax big business to fund affordable housing. The Amazon tax campaign was successful because of a fighting strategy by Shama Sawant's city council office that meant refusing to make backdoor deals with Democrats or big business, but instead fighting them and forcing them to concede through the power of a mass movement of working people and union members. That's the kind of leadership we need, not what we're seeing here today from elected officials and from state politicians. This is an absolute disgrace that these elected officials pass this anti-worker and anti-poor grocery tax. And let's not forget that all these politicians also blocked a resolution supporting a ceasefire in Gaza last year. This is shocking. With the face of genocide and ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people, these politicians deserve to be thrown out of office at the next election. Working people deserve need a new party because both Democrats and Republicans serve the interests of the rich, whether on city council or in U.S. Congress. And I urge working people listening to join Workers Strike Back and to go to workerstrikeback.org and talk to me after the meeting, because we need a strong, independent mass movement to defeat Trump's attacks on working people and immigrants and to end the genocidal war on Gaza, and to win offensive fights like a tax on the rich, to fund healthcare and affordable housing, because we know that when we fight, we can win.
Our next speaker is Bruce Pedigo.
Pedigo. I operate Joe's Towing here in Peoria. I spoke at the last council meeting 5 years ago about the towing increases. One of the things that we've experienced in the towing industry is an immense increase in the cost of equipment. As Donnie stated earlier, $175. We have seen an increase of 54% on our flatbeds that we service the city of Peoria with in 4 years, from 2021 until now. It's 54% increase. Depending on which side of the aisle you swing on, the minimum wage increase in the state of Illinois has increased our labor costs 62%, because unfortunately, even the people that were not making minimum wage before wanted a raise when the minimum wage went up. So at that point, our labor cost is up 62% in 4 years. I understand the COLA increase. If you take everything in the economic sphere, you're saying that it come up to 186 or 185 and some change. I did one on a search engine earlier today that said 193. I don't know who's right because I didn't write the COLA increases, but I can say that there's a difference of an opinion on what is correct and what is not correct, and 185 would not address it if what I looked up earlier said 193 would have got us from the 150 that the city attorney alluded to earlier that we started at 5 years ago. So we're not trying to put anyone out of a vehicle, as it was alluded to earlier. The city of Peoria collects a $525 fee for a piece of paper. That's 3 times more than what the guys doing the tow are getting paid, and that's a justified expense. I think maybe we need to look at this a little bit harder. I've been in business myself personally for over 37 years, and I am the sitting president of the state association. I do have some area of expertise when it comes to running a towing company, as I run one of the largest towing companies in downstate Illinois. And I'd be happy to sit down with anyone on the council or the city attorney or a designee that the mayor would design to talk about the particular challenges presented to the towers that are helping our police departments. My company alone tomorrow morning is delivering 6 cars to the fire department because the budget for cars to cut up for the city of fire departments so they can train on learn how to do their job, how to save people in that situation. That's not covered for in the city budget. That's on the backs of guys like me trying to help our community. But we're told that a $10 increase, which as Donnie alluded to earlier is a slap in the face, is just what it needs to be. It is a slap in the face. The other thing that I wanted to bring up about this issue is if we could get some cooperation and not just a heavy-handed, this is just how it's going to be. Maybe we could come to something that would work for both sides versus it just being handed down from the top. I would ask you to take this into consideration. And Mayor, if you'd like me to meet with anybody on your staff or anybody else, I'll bring the numbers, I'll bring the receipts to prove what we're saying in our cost has went up. I have nothing to hide from you. The last thing I'd like to add, not every car that we tow for the city of Peoria gets picked up. Some of the cars have no insurance, they're worth no value, but somebody's got to clean them up. That's one thing I got to give PDC and GFL and the people that pick up the garbage. They've got the good sense to get paid when they work. However, we go out 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and clean up an intersection, clean up a roadway, clean up a fatal, and we may never get paid, sir. So I think that you need to sit down with me, Donnie, and some of the other guys before you just recommend a $10 COLA increase. Remember that the next time you ask for a raise. Thank you.
You're welcome. And lastly, we have Tara Wood. What happened?
I think there's additional people in the audience who would like to speak who did not tender a card.
Well, they need to complete a card.
They,
Go ahead, Tara.
Good evening. I want to speak on the vote on the grocery tax. I wish it was, and I don't understand everything you guys do. I don't understand the tax codes and everything and all the procedures, but I was hoping that maybe this could be something that was tabled, and if that is even the right term or whatever. But the thing is that, like I said in my email that I sent to all of you, it just reminds me of, again, it's hard. I just can't accept that this is either we cut or we tax. I feel like there's enough smart minds around here that can come up with some other solutions. I also didn't know that Peoria wouldn't be able to maybe impose an income tax, and I learned that. And really, I don't disagree with much of what you all said. I mean, we don't want to cut these services. That would be the last thing I would wish, but it's hard to believe that it's cut thing. I'm just saying the same thing. It's hard to believe that we have to cut things or we have to impose this tax, which we understand it is a regressive tax, as Councilmember Vespa mentioned. And in a time where we have a lot of uncertainty and we know that this tax will affect the most vulnerable in our city, I really just thought there would be some other solutions. And I was really happy to hear that there were a lot of other things you guys considered. I don't know if I got them all, like the 14% increase of hotel and restaurant tax, or 15% increase in property tax. I understand that would be pretty bonkers given the numbers that we have. But again, I don't know, are these things that we can, how do we tax the wealthier people in our city? And as Vespa pointed out, Councilmember Vespa, that, I would be open to other options. I think a lot of you would be open to other options if you had them. You're claiming you don't have them. I don't believe that you can't find some. I think that you guys can put your heads together and find, as you say, a more progressive tax to fill this gap. And I also want to speak, I know, I wish that the gentleman behind me would have had a chance to speak first, because I don't know as much about what they're going to say. What's my time at?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. This 25-090, the Deerbrook Drive reconstruction, this is like almost a $7.5 million project. That's a lot of money that could potentially fill that gap, plus some. Maybe the tow truck drivers could use some of that, 2.5 million. Maybe some of our other, organizations in Peoria that help those less fortunate. This is a 0.6 mile stretch of road in one of the wealthiest parts of Peoria. And we are spending almost $7.5 million. I'm assuming it's probably a 25 mile per hour speed limit. So if there are potholes, like there are on Picture Ridge Road, like where I live, it's very similar. You don't need a $7.5 million new road. I don't understand why that is, why that was passed. I would have a lot of questions about that project. But yeah, I really believe in you guys. I really do. I think you're all very bright people. I've read all about you. I wish that we had some other options. Thank you.
Tim Growy.
Good evening. Thank you. Tim Growy. I live in Deerbrook Estates on Tall Oaks Lane. Yeah, $7.23 million for 0.6 of a mile. Why? For storm sewers that we don't have. I pay the storm sewer tax for the past 20 years. Have I gotten anything for it? No, you're going to throw it down a ravine, now you're going to put permeable pavement on it. That hasn't been proven to work. It's not a through street. It doesn't go anywhere. If we have sidewalks on both sides of the street now, where are the sidewalks going to go? To Knoxville? If you want to get another sidewalk, you can go over to Oak Brook, but then you got to walk up Antler, but there's no sidewalks there. There are people in Deerbrook who are not going to be able to park in their driveway because they can't park across the sidewalk now, because their drive is too short. The Deerbrook Homeowners Association has written Andrea Klopfenstein numerous times asking questions, no response. All of a sudden, one day about a month ago, 16 trees were taken down. I guess it's the city's right of way, but on the city's slide showed 3 years ago, promoting this project, they said 4 trees would be effective. The storm sewer tube, the outflow tube that's going to go to the city's outlot, where the septic tanks used to be before Deerbrook got sanitation sewers, your outflow tube's going to go right to that septic tank. I hope it doesn't mess it up. You own it. The surveys presented 3 years ago were inconsistent. None of the choices that people voted on were what the outcome is now. Then you came up, because you came up with the, what's it called here, the Deerbrook Complete Streets literature, which then you had to have the curb, then a green space, then the sidewalk. That's why people's driveways are not going to be anymore to park their cars. Ultimately, it seems like the PCI index in Deerbrook, the pavement condition index, is way up and down on your past Excuse me, folks. I usually don't talk in public. The PCI for Deerbrook Drive has gone up the last couple of years. How does that happen? How can that happen? Antler, Mesa was the worst, now it's up. Inconsistencies all over the place. I really don't think you know enough about the Deerbrook Drive reconstruction project for $7 million. I don't mean to insult you. I really don't. I'm a nice guy. Come on out. Take a look at it. You can always have a reconsideration, I guess. I wish you would. Learn more about it. It took about 3 minutes, maybe. No, it wasn't even that long, to approve $7 million for 0.6 of a mile. I'd rather speak up now than regret it, because now I'm going to feel better. You can always go back and do the right thing. Maybe we can reconsider this again. Thank you. Any questions? Comments?
Thank you, sir. John Nicararo, can you pronounce your name for me, please?
Nakora.
Nicararo, thank you.
Good evening. I'm retired. I've been living on Deerbrook on Deerbrook Drive. My wife and I moved in there almost 30 years ago. No question, Deerbrook Drive, the roadway, the 30-foot wide asphalt road, 0.6 of a mile long, needs some attention, needs some repaving. $7.5 million is a strikingly high number for 0.6 of a mile of asphalt. My particular beef with this project involves the idea of the sidewalks that have been suggested, have been part of this contract now, I guess. We moved into that subdivision, it didn't have sidewalks. When every one of our neighbors moved into that subdivision, there were no sidewalks. Many of us, most of us, I think, saw that as a feature and not a bug. The idea of installing sidewalks takes away from the character of the neighborhood, adds a ridiculously large amount of money to the contract, which, to my understanding, was budgeted by the city at something like $6.5 million. So the thing is over what your budget was because the sidewalks were included. The sidewalks were kind of foisted upon us as a sort of a secondary thought by the city, who asked us at a neighborhood meeting, would we like sidewalks? Let's do a survey. The survey was sent out by the city, but what the survey didn't tell anybody was that these sidewalks were not to be constructed within the current footprint of the 30-foot wide pavement that currently exists. These sidewalks were going to be installed by taking 8-foot slabs, 8-foot stretch of everybody's front yard in order to install these sidewalks. And when you look at some of the front yards, when you take an 8-foot slab away from those front yards, their driveways are barely long enough to allow a single car to be parked in the driveway. Now, this was not made clear to the folks who answered the survey, and there was a majority of people who did answer the survey and said, yeah, they think sidewalks would be nice. But if you were to do that survey again, I'm pretty confident that a substantial majority of people would say, no, I don't want a damn sidewalk here if it's going to take away 8 feet of my front yard, make my driveway smaller, and present me with something that I'm going to have to shovel snow off of in the winter, and it's going to increase my property taxes. So my request is that the city find a way to undo the process that just happened here where you approve the contract and redo the survey so that you have a sense as to what the neighborhood really wants here when they're presented with all of the facts and the implications. And it may just be a chance for y'all to be able to save some of the $7.5 million that's going to this roadway that goes absolutely nowhere, to create sidewalks that there's no place to walk to because we don't have schools in this neighborhood. We don't have libraries. We don't have playgrounds. We don't have anything that you can walk to. No stores, no other commercial establishments. It's just a residential area, dead ending, goes nowhere. And the installation of the sidewalks would be something that nobody is going to miss, and that some portion of that $7.5 million could be spent to do something a lot better than putting sidewalks where nobody wants them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
We are at executive session.
I would like to invite a motion to adjourn and to convene in closed session immediately following adjournment of the City Council meeting pursuant to the Open Meetings Act, 5 ILCS 122C11, to discuss pending litigation, and pursuant to the Open Meetings Act, 5 ILCS 122C21, for approval by the body of closed session minutes. Can I get a motion? Moved by Councilmember Jackson, seconded by Councilmember Gordon Young. Please cast your ballots. Thank you for your service.